Senator Schmitt.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have a couple questions, and you may have addressed this already, but I do want to ask because I get a lot of questions about this from back home. So you were aware of this the night before on the NOTAM failure in January, but the public was not made aware until the next morning, right? Including when people were sitting on planes and flights were delayed. I mean, there was no real transparency with the public. You would agree with that?
What I would agree with, sir, is that the system on the night before was operating, and also airlines were not reporting that there were any operational impacts on the night of the 10th. Okay,
so how long until you knew that this actually wasn't working until the public knew?
Okay, go ahead.
So first thing I wanted to check with is, do you any of the outlet?
I think that was one of our colleagues trying to.
That's okay. Can I have my 10 seconds back?
Yes,
Just
sure.
kidding. Right. Okay. I just want to move on to something else. So in the president's budget that has been submitted, there is $2.4 million proposed to address climate change. In the conclusion of that budget, it says, and I quote, "The FAA's budget request for FY 2023 embodies the administration's priorities of mitigating climate change and increasing equity." Do you believe that that is your mission at the FAA, to mitigate climate change and increase equity? Is that your job at the FAA?
I believe it's all of our jobs, sir, to address climate change, and it's one that we take seriously.
Okay, in that report, there's further commentary about it as a response to the accelerating climate crisis. Do you believe we have a climate crisis?
I was just at the ICAO convention where the majority in an overwhelming fashion supported moving to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So if you look out across the global community, it is one that's staring us in the face, and it is one we must address.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in the global community's view. I'm interested in the FAA's view, whose mission is supposed to be safe and affordable travel for the American public. And what I've noticed with agencies, and this was particularly heightened in COVID, and I think is now the playbook, we went from global warming to climate change to now a climate crisis. And as you've indicated, words matter. And in my view, that is meant to stoke fear and empower unelected bureaucrats to do things that are not authorized by law because it's a quote-unquote emergency. And so I have deep concerns with spending $2.4 million on, it's not really clear, but I want to read you something from this. It says the FAA, this is the same budget request, the FAA will need to continue supporting maintenance and implementation of ICAO's carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation. Corsica, the international standard. Corsica is a market-based measure that allows international operators to achieve carbon neutral growth through the use of carbon offsets and sustainable aviation fuel. Is the FAA currently supportive of Corsica?
Corsica, yes, sir, we are, and we are supportive of our move to sustainable aviation fuels.
Okay. I am distressed and troubled that the Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, is not here today. Do you know if Pete Buttigieg, when he flies private, uses that same system, that same measurement of Corsica?
Well, first, let me say, sir, that what you speak of is private or government aircraft that are used across the government. We use aircraft for testing. The FAA has a fleet of 42 aircraft that are primarily used for en route testing, et cetera. And so in those, without having to sort of qualify this, we are talking about public resources and not private resources.
Right. Does the Secretary use market-based carbon offsets when he flies private?
Sir, I can't speak to that.
Can you get back to me on that? Because I'm very interested. Or maybe actually if you could get the message to the Secretary that next time we have a hearing dealing with the Department of Transportation, the FAA, we'd like to see him here, and if he could give an answer to that, because he flies private a lot. He tells hardworking Americans they need to pay more for things that he's not willing to pay for, and people are frustrated. So could you relay that message to him?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.